Welcome once again to the Rossi's Brosis Empowerment Hour. I am your host, Darwin, and today we want to welcome you, our viewers and subscribers, to another session of our Rossi's Empowerment Hour. And today, we want to say thank you for the viewers and the subscribers, and please like and share the videos so that your friends, your families can see and learn something that whatever that we may be broadcasting on any given day. Now, today we have a very important guest, very special guest, a stalwart of Rossis. And it's not one that you would see on the football field, but it's one that you would have seen on the cricket pitch. So it's on a different face. Today we take a new turn. This gentleman, none other than Mr. Kanai Simpson. He's always present at the games. You may not see him, but let me tell you, he's always seeing you. Kanai, welcome to the Rossis Empowerment Hour. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, Darwin. It's a pleasure being on the Empowerment Hour, and it's a pleasure being part of Bruce's family and the Rossi's family.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. And, with such humbleness and grace, as always, I remember my first time when I saw you was way back in the 70s when I entered Middlesex Primary School. You were, a senior for me at the primary school. So, I wanted to be like the big boys. So I don't know if you remember those days, but at some, now that we have grown now, we wish that we were the little boys again. So, a lot of persons might not, the persons who went to Middlesex Corner Primary who are watching now would have known you during those times. So maybe we should start right there where you started, because let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, man. I remember you quite well, even though you were smaller than I did. But I was born in Lucy, Noel's Home Hospital to be exact, yeah? And my earliest months of growing was at Johnsontown in Lucy, a little lane they call Bar Lane. You know, I was told, and after I left overseas, I met an old lady who have since deceased, who said that she used to care for me when I was about 2 months old, up to about 6 months old, because my mother then was back at work sewing ball at the factory in Lucy. So she usually leave me with her. But then when my mother migrated to United States of America in early 67, she took me to Middlesex to my grandmother, Miss Beck. Many people know her as Miss Beck, but her name is really Rebecca Grant, yeah?
Yes.
And that is where I grew up. I grew up there. And, I want to say this, that my first schooling started at Middlesex Corner Primary. I was never a child who had the privilege of attending a basic school then. But I remember that my grandmother took me to Middlesex Corner, and you're a past student of Middlesex Darwin. Miss
Of course.
Malcolm, Ivy Malcolm, was then the vice principal there.
Yes.
And, she told my grandmother then that she couldn't take me of two reasons. One, because I did not have that exposure to basic school level. And two, I was too young. So, I felt bad because I understood what she was saying. And my grandmother, I looked at her face and realized that she was so dejected. But 2 days later, I don't know if you remember Mr. George Anderson. That's the same gentleman they call Barnsey. That's Marcus's grandfather, the Andersons from Middlesex, that Thompson Hill era.
Yes, I
He was a
remember that.
watchman at Middlesex. He was a watchman at Middlesex Corner Prep. So he came to my grandmother and said that Miss Malcolm said she should return to school the following day, and took the birth certificate. So having gone back with my grandmother she said she's giving me that opportunity because school will be reopening on the 4th of September, which was my
Right.
birthday. So she's giving
Wow.
me a birthday present. And you know, a country guy from Middlesex, you get the haircut. My first haircut too, because my hair was long and plaited at the back there. My
Yes.
first haircut was under the mango tree in the yard.
With
So they
scissors.
clean the back and have a little brush top at the front there. And no khaki pants then, but I had clothing because my mother would have brought clothing from America for me, yeah.
Yes,
But
yes.
the pants was a quarter drape, that. So I had two problems going to school. I got some hits in the head back, and persons were laughing at me about the quality of pants. But the whole irony of going to Middlesex Corner Primary then at grade one was that I could not write properly. And so bitter that the teacher then, I won't call the name, but she was very rude, you know, that I should not have been at school there at Middlesex Corner Primary because I don't have the formal learning of, but I don't know if you remember Winston McNabb, Guido.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yes, Guido, my distant cousin, which I learned when I was going to overseas. But we grew up together, we attended the same primary school, and Guido held my hand and taught me to form the letters.
Wow.
And I told myself that for 1 week, Guido could help me. The second week, he could not have done so. And I tell you that when the rest is history,
Yes,
you
sir.
know. So, growing up at Middlesex Corner Primary, growing up in the community of Middlesex, I grew almost by myself, along with my grandmother, and ably assisted by my adopted mother, Miss Hepsy Hopkins, who taught at Middlesex Corner Primary, then taught English language at Rose's.
Yes.
And, I was never a boy, though, who was allowed to roam the street. I was never allowed also to even go down by the play field at Middlesex. Had to be in the yard. That was the discipline that my grandmother grew me with. In 1978, grade six, I remember then that people like Howard Miller, Billy and Stevenson, and the Rochester sisters, they all sat the common entrance exam. I didn't sit. Naive then was my grandmother, didn't know then that she should have allowed me to sit.
Right.
So when my name wasn't published in the papers, Miss Hopkins was so upset, but she got calm. So 1979, I was successful, and I held one as a boy. But Middlesex is a pivotal community in Hanover, produces a lot of stalwarts that would have passed through seas and are making and still making names for themselves across this country and overseas. So growing up there, I can tell you, we never knew anything about football. That was never a football community. It's a cricket
That's true.
community.
There's not much
It's a
place.
cricketing community.
Yeah, it's a mountainous area. There's not much flat area to play.
Mountainous area. Yeah, So the one little place was down by the playfield at Middlesex Bottom, very close to the bridge.
Yes.
Yeah, but we used to play, if you remember, just in front of the cottage at Middlesex Corner Primary.
That's all
And
concrete.
in front of school, yes.
Yeah, the
And we
asphalt
used to
area.
play down at the gully there, yeah,
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
where the toilets were. You know what I mean? We
Right.
used to play down there. It was a joy growing up there. But I can tell you, that I still go to Middlesex. I live in St. James, but I still go to Middlesex, reminiscent with people who I grew up with or who are elder than I, But those early years and the way I was growing, because I had to go to church then, yeah, man. And we started out at First Hill Church in Lucy. That's the same church that is on the hill at Dias there. Like you're going down to Kingsville, just after you come out of Dias Square, you turn up on the hill. The Protestant Reformed Church. It's now Christian Fellowship.
Yes.
But the origin of that church was really First Hill in Lucy. So the boy growing up, the Macphersons had trucks. And a gentleman named Mr. Compton. That was what we used as transportation to go to church in Lucy. And every Sunday I had to be there. So I was grown up in that level of discipline fellow. So those early years at Middlesex, very good. I remember, a matter of fact, that piece of land, I was told that Middlesex Corner Primary is on belonged to my great grandparents. They would have sold it to the government for the school to be built because all that stretch of land that you see from where the school is right back to the main road belongs to my family members. And that is where my grandmother was buried when she died in 1995.
Right.
So, the grants from Dias, the mother comes from Old Middlesex there, you know, they're one family members. So that was our
Wow.
place. So I was privy then to those days where a lady by the name of Miss Nola, who used to be right beside the school, used to sell those pudding.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Those
I
things
remember.
kept us, yes.
Yeah,
Come
man.
on. And Miss Ella was then my grandmother's cousin. There are two first cousins. And there's a lady who used to sell that potato pudding. You remember her? They call her Cookie.
Of course. Yeah, man. I remember
Yes,
Cookie very well, man.
my ma's Gramps' wife. So Gramp
Yes,
and my
yes.
grandmother, they're cousins. So, I was well taken care of. You know, well taken care of. So Middlesex Corner Primary, yes, ma'am. Love
There's
that
something that
place.
there's something that you might not want to talk about that, but I remember that whole expanse of land below the school, all the way down towards Middlesex. We had a jambalaya tree down there that we were not allowed to to go to.
You mean Mr. Jones' Jambalaya Tree there?
Yes, man.
Yes, ma'am. That, but listen, I will tell you though, I don't know, but this man, I don't even know what that fruit is for. But we usually go there and pick it.
To
And
eat a
then
lot
when
of
he
it, man.
comes, yeah, man, and when he comes to Middlesex School to make report to the principal or the vice principal or some teachers, they would just call us and ask us to push out our tongues. And it is
Yes.
purple. So they knew that we were having that, you know. But that little gentleman, Mr. Jones, But you remember though, Darwin, that before you go down to the Drumeline tree, he had a mango tree that they call Hardy
Yes,
that
man.
used to be right below the girls' bathroom there.
I remember, man, quite
Yeah,
well.
man. But that piece of land was owned by the gentleman named Mr. Jones. He would have passed on many years ago. But it was just a joy to go there. I don't think we realized that we were stealing. But, because it wasn't given to us, we just go across
No,
the fence because we're students there. You know what I
that's
mean?
right.
But it was just a joy. And it's a difference though within those days and today's days because the children nowadays, we used to use that, we used to use that as a joke, or we took it for fun. Today's children don't even do that because they have no fun.
Yes, true that.
They have changed. The whole landscape and thing of Jamaica has changed totally.
That's true. Sure, true, true. And you talk about that. We used to have our, like, every primary school used to have their sports day in that same little asphalted area. Cricket used to be played there sometimes too.
Yes, man. Yes, man. That is where I hone my skills as a cricketer. Because I
Yes,
tell you something, I used to spin the ball, and I had the faster one that I usually use to get wicket.
yes.
But then, from Middlesex, I watched the bigger gentlemen who played the game at the playfield down there and practiced to run up and deliver and bowl fast. You know, it was a joy growing up there, and you know, that school really pushed me and nurtured me so that in 1979 I attended Rossies. And
Wow.
it wasn't the Rossies that we're now clamoring about, it's the Martin Rossi campus, right beside the hospital there and beside Food Charlotte and the public work building, yes. And those days it was common entrance.
Yes.
Your average had to be way up there. You have to be between 89 or so going to 100 to enter any of the schools because we did not have then so many high schools. It was
Right.
more traditional high schools we had. Yeah, more traditional high schools because Hanover had just one high school, Westmoreland had Manning's, St. James had in my time had two in Cornwall College, well, four in Cornwall College, Herbert Morrison, and Moby High along with Mount Alvernia.
Mount Alvernia. Right.
Trelawney had one high school, William Neville. And then you had schools like York Castle in St. Anne and St. Hilda's, you know. So it was only traditional high schools then.
Yes. Yes. So you started now. You at Rossi's. What How did you find it at Rossi's those days? Because I know it's different now because football has taken over this environment now. Those days, what was the thing to be doing at that time? I know football was being played, but what was the environment like?
Well, everyone who being at primary school and sitting your common entrance or doing your schoolwork, we aim to be at Rossi's because the girls aim to wear that pink and white uniform, and we aim to wear the checkered tie. You know what I mean? That tie to go to Rossi's. Now, entering Rossi's in 1979, and I tell you something, Rossi's was a powerhouse team, in football, even before my time. But the main aim of Rossi's was your academics. That was your main aim. Your academics was the main aim. So going to Rossi's in 79, you know, as a country boy, as old Linton Stewart used to shout me as country boy. You know what I mean? My good friend though, yeah, man, very good friend.
Yes.
You know, you had to prepare yourself academically then. And the curriculum there have all the academical subjects, but you had to do physical education. And entering Rossi's in September that year, you had to go there to do your football. And coming from a community for me that never played the football in its entirety, I was at sea. I would not say, but I learned the skill though watching people like Lyndon Stewart as a teenager. You know what I mean? But watching the likes of Sheridan Samuels and Walter McDonald and those guys, Rohan Gashier, you had to learn the skill of playing the game. When January comes in, it is the cricket time and the athletics period. So it's everything is up my alley then.
Yes,
But
sir.
I met some lovely teachers there. I mean, Emerson Henry was there, Miss Shippey, yeah man, Miss Jones, Sir Connell, and then the wild one, Colin Miller.
Yes.
Colin, yeah man, he was the neatest I've ever seen. Very neat, but you had students who, the itinerant ones, may get a little problem here and there. But when it comes to the schooling in those days, people like Mr. Connell and Mr. Henry and those teachers, Mr. Miller, Mr. Nelson, they kept us in line. And not just keeping us in line, but they kept us focused on the task at hand, which is your
Yes.
education.
Right. Yes.
That was the first and foremost. I remember that when I went there, the principal was Miss Magnus then.
Right. Yes.
Yes, but I was told that she was the VP to Mr. White before September. She was the vice principal to Mr. White, But, and I'll tell you something, that when I went there, she called me Connie Simpson.
Connie.
Connie, and I didn't answer. I was standing right in front of her, and I didn't answer her. You know what I mean? And Miss Jones was there because Miss Jones is from Middlesex.
Yes.
Yes, Miss Jones is from Middlesex. So she said, no, no. I was here he is, but his name is Kanai. And she said to me, you stop because she was big and she said, you're standing in front of me, young man. And I said, my name is Kanai. It is pronounced this way. So, but Rosie's, wow, it was my pleasure being there. It was my pleasure being there. I don't have a child that went there, but it is my pleasure being there, my brother. You
it,
know,
it it certainly
all
shows.
fun memories. Eh?
It shows because you're always at the games, you're always there, you're always present behind the
Yeah,
scenes. Your
man.
name is always mentioned.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you something, that after leaving and becoming a member of the JSF, maybe better part of 25 years, I've contributed to the football program there. Mr. Henry would call like from April. So time is coming, So he had to be there. Because let me tell you, there are many of us who have graduated from that institution, having gotten a proper education, but we fail to look back. It's like when you're growing up in the country, they said that you throw a spoon behind you.
Yes.
There's no way that I could have done that. And as long as I am alive, I will never do that. Because that institution, along with Middlesex Corner Primary, is the one that made me who I am. And those teachers who taught me, But along the way, we'll speak more about this whole Rossi's thing.
Of course, because a lot of persons didn't even know. I know Mr. Henry taught me chemistry at top school in eighth grade and seventh
Yeah.
grade. And then you talk about he taught geography.
Yes, man. When I went there at first farm, he taught geography there.
And
Yeah,
I
man.
didn't
And the
know all of that.
chemistry. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. He taught me chemistry. I was at 1C and he taught me chemistry there. I mean, geography there.
So, I mean, what inspired you then, to want to give back to overseas? What inspired you to do that?
Well, growing up, in Middlesex, that way, I grew up with my grandmother who was very kind. And she said to me back then that one, respect begets respect. Two, never forget where you're coming from. And never forget who assisted you along the way.
Yes.
If it's even once that person assisted you, never forget that person. So I'm not a teacher, but in my job description, whatever I achieved over the years, I still believe that I owed the institution something.
Yes.
Now, I thought, well, which area can I assist? I knew that the cricket will take some more time and whatsoever out of me to go there to help train those guys. So I decided that. And when I was going through the seas, a matter of fact, and even playing Headley Cup, we used to keep shows, make some funds to help us to do something because things weren't that boast like now. So
Yes.
I decided that look here, the nutrition level, I had to be there for that. And that is what inspired me, to give back through that route. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I introduced Rupert McIntyre, a former student also, he's a businessman in St. James. He's from Lucy too, to the principal, and he contributed also because the last time we won the Costa Cup, the players were feted up by his establishment
Wow.
after they won. Yeah, man, after we destroyed Clarendon College, that 2-1 game with Vassaren as the coach.
Right.
So they were feted at Mackey's place in Mount Salem, you know, and it was a joy being there because persons were saying that so many great players came from Salem and Dakar Cup never come to Mount Salem. Russia bring Dakar Cup to Mount Salem.
Wow.
So I had to be a part of that program and I will continue to be a part of that program as long as I'm around.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for saying that because now I want to go now into what drove you to want to give back because you played Headley Cup cricket at Rossies.
As I said before, Darwin, that if I should put a spin on it or to say, listen, this is why the most fervent answer is the school gave me and nurtured me into who I am. The smallest of assistance that I can do to the school,
Yes.
that is what. Because all of us owe that school benefit of gratitude.
I
So
totally
that it
agree.
does an urge out of me that I want to give back to the school. If I make it a dream, it might tell me, boy, that this was the dream that you had. But no, it just came up. No, you need to go back to overseas and give back to overseas.
Yes.
It came to me also to give back to Middlesex Corner Primary too.
Yes. Yes. Because you represented Rossies at the highest level. And you I know Rupert was up also a cadet because when I was in cadet, Rupert was my senior in cadet
Yeah,
and Unsigned
yeah,
and these guys. So I remember them
yeah.
a lot. But I want you to talk about your cricket years just to kind of because persons might think that you don't know anything about sports because it's just about football, and you know you're a very
Wow.
good bowler, all round cricketer overseas, top class too.
Yeah. But I tell you something, the history will tell you that before I get into our playing days, the history will tell you that since the Tech now is the leading Headley Cup winning team,
Yes,
but they are not, and they weren't the first team that ever won Headley Cup. Russies won Headley Cup 1976 before them.
right.
And that team inclusive of the young man Taylor and the gentleman named Baita. His current name is Dockery. Even Swelly Miller, those guys, they won the Cup cricket 1976. Yes. But if you ask Mr. Henry, Mr. Henry was a good cricketer, I was told. Yeah, man, was a very good cricketer. But we won Heavy Cup that year. We reached the finals in 77. And then we dropped out because of some overage players, 78 to 79. You know what I mean? But almost every year for the better part of 10 years, we reached the semifinals
Oh, that's
stage.
amazing. That's amazing.
Even in our playing days, we reached the semifinals and to be beaten by States. But our days, we played marvelous cricket. We played hard, we trained hard, because we were representing an institution
Yes,
that had history with it.
yes.
Because almost everything about Rossi's in the diary is history,
Yeah, of course, it is. It is.
you know. So I'll tell you something, I played on a 16 cricket competition at those stage from first farm. Those days I used to be playing around with it. And was a fixture on the Headley Cup team from third farm. But
Wow.
then, you had senior players, so you rub the bench. But we
Yeah, but
never
it,
had a problem with that. Once you're on the team and you can even carry the water out to give them, it was a joy representing overseas. But then, we were very much serious about winning Headley Cup 83 because our counterparts in the football department lost to Cornwall College in the finals. So we wanted to exact some revenge on some people, and that was the plan.
yes,
Well,
sir.
it didn't work out the way we wanted it, but we still did the school proud by reaching the semifinals. And as I said to you, from 1979, those years growing up, for the better part of 10 years, we reached the semifinal stage. Yeah, man, we
Wonderful,
reached the
man.
semifinal stage, you know, and it was a joy, though, because there was this teacher, and he was a counselor there, captain. He's a Salvation Army man, too, from Barbados. He used to come there and play with us and train with us. You know what I mean? So the team that I represented and played with in 83, as I said to you, Stets won against us. And it was just, I would say misjudged, misjudging of the conditions. by my cousin Winston McNabb Guido, who captained the team. But we played hard cricket. I remember in that season, Mr. Clark, a former maths teacher at Proceed, was our coach, now deceased. You know, he was always, you guys are so good. Sometimes he didn't even say anything to us when we were training because we take the training seriously. We took it very serious. And we had a principal in Colin Miller who I never see him play the game of cricket. I did see him play football, but he was always right there with us, watching and ensuring that and encouraging us along the way, So it was great playing for that institution. Great, you know. We had some lovely matches
You know,
against some other
yes,
school.
I was going to talk about that. I want you to talk about any highlights, any special moments, any games that you it's so memorable that you have to talk about. You know, and any players that that anything that you any special moment during the games because I know you have a few of them.
Yeah, man, we had. I'll tell you something. In '83, what a bittersweet competition because I remember playing Cornwall College at Sam Sharp Teachers College. I remember I dropped a catch in the slip. Even up to today, I said to myself that that catch may have cost us the match. But then when we lost, and because we were playing so good and we were trapping the players in front, and the umpires weren't giving them out. After the match, we asked the question, umpire, this man never out those times. And he said, no, the man was playing good, the man was batting good. So,
Yes.
the groundsman told us one away that he wasn't going to give them out because most of them live in the same yard in Granville. So, you know, that afternoon, it was a Wednesday afternoon, Darwin. And,
Yes.
you know, Andrew Brown, we call him AB, he now lives in Ghana. He said to me, I could go down to school to fix the wicket. So we went down and we started to prepare the wicket. And we went, we rolled, we did everything. The Saturday, we encountered Herbert Morrison. They came down. Match started at 10:30. By 11 o'clock, the game was over. They were bowled out for 16.
Wow.
Carvelacha, my friend, now deceased also, pace bowler, he got 7 for 1. No, 7 for 3.
Wow.
And Andrew Brown got the other 3 wickets.
Wow.
At 11:10 or so in the day, persons were coming to the match. They came and they saw us sitting right in front of the school where the motto is and all of those stuff. And they said, wow, match has started. And we said, no, game finished. Because we bowled them out for 16. But in the semifinals, I remember we played Steads at Frome and they made 225. And we were 75 for 1. And I tell you something, I decided and said to Guido that, look here, let us play the 4th day. If we get first innings, we will be in the finals. But, Stets, them big self and their school, Dr. Bennett, of course, Mr. Clark, and said, look here, no man, let us play at Kirkvine. No, we went up and we were always at a disadvantage because I was also advocating that if we're going to replay this match, because it would end up in a no result, then let's
Right,
play it at home. We share the journey. But he coerced Mr. Clark into agreeing to play at Kirkvine. We would be at a disadvantage because one, we didn't have anywhere to stay more than going to Homewood or stay at Steds. And then the two teams would have driven up.
right, right.
But we left the morning in that urban bus with Kitty Brown to Kirkvine. When we went out on that field that way, the grass was so high, but it's the type of grass. Now, compare the two teams since I was at third form. We were more a stroke playing team. We were more a stroke playing team. The Steds team was more a team that could hook because their players in Kenneth McLeod, Dwight Meikle, Hezekiah Larson, Dean Courtwright, those pace bowlers, most of them represented Jamaica at youth
Yes,
level.
yes,
They were bouncers. Kenneth McLeod and Meikle represented Jamaica at the highest level
yes,
because Kenneth McLeod, the same one we call Snake, he represented Jamaica at the senior level. Yeah.
yes.
So they were bouncers. So we knew that you could not play the ball on the ground at Kirkwide and get runs. You'll have to be hitting over the top. Well, let me tell you something. I said to Winston then, I said, if you win the toss, bat first. Because the place was overcast from early. Having won the toss, but in that game, Darwin, he never gave me a because
You didn't.
we had an
Yeah.
issue. He didn't give me I didn't get to play that game because we had an argument over him bowling Carvel Archer for 19 overs straight at room in the first
Really?
semi-final. Yes, man. And I was so caught up about it because the young man, when he was through that 19 overs, he had to come off the field.
But how much runs
So
did he make after that 19 overs?
no man, he bowled 19 overs, and got 2 wickets.
Oh,
Right?
that's a lot of
He
overs,
bowled, yeah, man, a lot of overs. He was overworked. And I'll tell you something. We had an argument over it. So I wasn't given a play at Kirkvine, but my
Yes.
friend Andrew Brown and others played. And trust me, they made 189 after he won the toss and put them in. If I tell
Wow.
you how much Rossi was bowled out for you'll be shocked.
Yeah.
16.
I got a comfort treatment.
Yeah, man. And I had the last
Wow.
lap coming down, because I was saying to them, no, the ball was hanging because by 1:30, the rain started falling. And then we
Okay.
had to go to Homewood to stay. We had to sleep at Homewood. That place. We coming from a climate that was hot into the cold climate in Manchester there, you know. And
Yes.
the match didn't start the second day until about 12:30 after they had to
Wow.
use sawdust and all of those stuff and the thing. And all the pace bowlers did as their normal thing is to hit it down in the middle of the wicket.
That's
And the
it.
ball hung. So everybody hung their bats out there. And you got caught either in front of the bat or in the slip region. So we were dismissed. But I tell you something, that same team, we represented Hanover, in the youth level because those days you had each parish pushing forward the youth team. It was our team that represented Hanover, and we reached far.
The Russia's
Again,
team?
the
What?
Russies team that year, we reached far. I mean, we met up on the likes of St. Elizabeth with all those guys again from states. And that was where we bucked our toes. But we
Magnificent.
destroyed teams like Westmoreland, Trelawney, and those St. James, because we were good. We're very
Yes,
good
yes.
because St. James had the crop of guys who played for Herbert Morrison, Cornwall College, and, you know, coming together to play. But we were a unit. And I tell you something, Darwin, that we were almost together from third farm. We
Yes.
knew how each other played. So, we went into that competition. But I cannot recall if we had reached a semi-final, but I think we reached far though in that competition. Until we
Uh,
stopped by St. Elizabeth again,
again.
you know. Until we stopped by St. Elizabeth again. But as I'm on the cricket, let me tell you something. You know that a lot of people would not know that Russies produce players that played for Jamaica.
Yes.
In the likes of Franz Cunningham, he played for Jamaica. He played youth cricket for Jamaica and played for Jamaica at the highest level.
Yes. What about
But
Doggy? Did Doggy play for Jamaica too?
he played, yes, he
Horton,
played
Albert
at
Horton.
the Alric went for the youth trials. So he went there and Ivan James, right?
Okay.
Ivan James, that's the same guy we call Bow Wow,
Yes.
you know. His brother played for Stets, Carly James. Played against us too. Very good player. But Ivan was a very good pace bowler. Very good pace bowler. You know, they played in the 79 80 season. That's
Yes.
Alric Horton and Ivan James. But
Yes.
if I tell you something, you know that a guy named Lloyd Taylor
Yes.
was the first person to represent Jamaica at youth level from overseas. He
Wow.
was from the 76 winning team. Yeah, man. He played for Jamaica at that youth level. And then, you
Wow.
had people like Franz Cunningham after. And tell you something to Darwin. In our time training, there was this Rasta guy from the Lansby area, Geppo. He played on that 76 team. He came there, man, and he was great with his inspiration. He taught us how to hook, how to play, the square cuts and all of those stuff. You know what I mean? People like Olo G from Lucy used to come up and give us some insights on his playing days because he was there with the team when they won Headley Cup. Olo G
Headley
from
Cup.
Lucy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
So in our days, we were nurtured well by some past players. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Awesome.
But
Awesome.
we did well as a cricketing team. We did well
Very
as a
good.
cricketing team, I proceed. And then tell you something, that the game of cricket is not like what it is now. Then it was very good. It's not like those days back then,
Because no,
because
we
you
no,
had
no, no. Back then we had transistor radios to listen to games, and we didn't have TV to watch it on.
yes, you know, but then it was the sport that most people wanted to see. At least though, Russies, in my view, have the largest followers in football.
Yes.
Some person, like, the naysayers from St. James who supports Cornwall College will tell you that college, no. When the Russians are coming, they're coming.
Yes.
They're coming well. Yeah.
I will take a break right now. This is we're talking with Kanai Simpson, one of our stalwart from the Russies institution. Very great individual, and I'm gonna tell you, we have a lot of information to talk about when we come back. Now, I want to say, let me check with the chat room real quick, Kanai, and see what some of the members are saying.
Yeah.
Century, of course, is checked in. Mr. Connell is saying, well, Mr. Connell already give you the title, Officer Simpson. We haven't gotten there yet, but he's already giving you that title. Mr. Dunkley, you know, Mr. Connell says, Mr. Officer Simpson, it's a pleasure listening to you. Make no mistake about it. Country living is the best. That's what he's saying. And Mr. Dunkley now is saying, blessings to Mr. Kanai Simpson. So delighted to have you on the forum. Always proud to celebrate the accomplishments of his past students. You have
Wow.
done exceptionally well. Coming from Mr. Dunkley and Mr. Connell, that's
Yeah.
great, Yes. And Dawn does, a teacher who has her program on Wednesdays. She does English, and
Yeah.
she's a teacher for the school. She says that sound advice. She talk about when your grandma give you some advice there. She says sound advice coming from your grandma.
Yes. Yes.
So I want to just say, here's I don't know. It's Vernal Parkinson says all he
Oh
said was
yes.
Captain Walcott. Captain Walcott. That's it.
Yes, man. He's reminding me that it was Captain Walcott, man. He's reminding that it was
Okay.
Captain Walcott. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
Captain
and
Walcott.
just to give a reminder for the viewers and the subscribers, now's the time to subscribe and like. Please like the videos. And we on Tuesdays we do have Mr. 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 Dunkley has his maths classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays we have Miss Dawn Dawes having her English programs, and Thursday evening we have our sports program. Maybe one of these evenings you can be a guest on the sports program because you have so much information to talk about that this
Yeah,
one
yeah,
hour is not enough to talk about that. I guarantee
yeah.
you, because you have a wealth of knowledge to talk about. And we could talk about cricket for the whole hour, and we still would not
Yeah,
be able to
man.
touch anything else. So
Yeah.
viewers and subscribers, please subscribe and like, because we as Russians, if we don't support ourselves, nobody is going to be, entitled to support us. So please support our empowerment videos. Okay, now let's go back in there, because you were talking about, I know Rossies as an institution, I know sports and education, these are they combine together. But back in those days, academics was the main driving force at most of the institution, especially Rossies. So now that you have passed through Rossies, when you look back, how do you see the what part do you think sports play in the institution, in the development of the children?
Well, listen, they always say, that hard work and no play make Jack a dull boy.
I wanted to
You
say
know,
that, but I'm glad you said it.
you know what I mean? So you must have some downtime.
Yes.
Even if you're working, there's time for downtime. And I see Brian Martin, Big Ed, his downtime is really, his wellness program, you
Yes.
know. But the sporting discipline, and I've always advocated for the sporting discipline to be part of the curriculum to a level that, it balances out the academics, right? But also, I want to see players academically inclined, not just say we're playing football. You must be academically inclined because scholarships are there.
Yeah.
Scholarships are there right across the world. And if you're not academically inclined, then you won't get those scholarships. And if you do get one because of your fee, you might not survive.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You have to be academically inclined also.
Yes.
And there's no need for one to say, boy, like football, I don't like sports. No. Each school, their curriculum have aspects of sports.
Yes.
Because if you're doing physical education, it's either you're going to run or you're going to play cricket. The ladies play netball. Now we have basketball in the school. You have volleyball. You have table tennis. Matter of fact, my friend Andrew Brown, who used to play in the cup, was a very good table tennis player.
Yes.
very good table tennis player. You know what I mean? So I am one who believes that we must mix
Yes.
those. And in old days, you couldn't say you're not going out there because physical education was a part of the thing and you were being graded.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
you were being graded then for PE. So if it is football in that term, you're being graded there. And if it is cricket, you're being graded. And if it's athletics, you're being graded. And you still have to write your exam. So I
Yes.
am one of those advocates for the sporting discipline to be a part of it. But being at Rossi's, man, I enjoyed myself playing the different sporting disciplines there. Yeah, man,
I'm
I
glad you
enjoyed
mentioned.
it.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I apologize. Um, when you reflect, now that you're in that reflective moment, that's what drove me to want to ask you this question now. Were there any opportunities, any challenges, disappointments, anything that you missed that you want to talk about?
You meant whilst attending Rossi's?
Whilst you now that you're reflecting now that you're, because hindsight is 2020. So you are more
Mm.
wiser now. So when you reflect and look back, what you know now, what you would know then.
I'll tell you something, Darwin. Yes, I had challenges, and you know, I recall one of my greatest challenge then attending the seas was when I was at fifth form, and I remember telling Mr. Dunkley this. He couldn't even remember it, but I remembered that. And the six C's to be paid for. And when I contacted my mother in America, months before that, and she told me that she was going to send the money. And I remember Miss Hopkins asking me if she's going to send the money. I told her yes, of which I should have told her no. But because I was grown up, such a disciplined church boy, I couldn't tell lie. And I
Yes.
still cannot do so now, you know. But when the time was drawing nigh, I became so frustrated, deserted in the slightest way to say. And someone said to me, well, you don't talk to Mr. Dunkley. And I remember speaking to Mr. Dunkley, and he was so humble and compassionate. And, I told him that I had a two-speaker tape that my mother had brought. He gave me $1,600 for that. And I paid for the
Yes.
subjects.
Wow.
Paid for the subjects. And I owed him gratitude. Yeah, man. Because if he had not bought them, it would take me maybe a year or two to do the sixes and to pass them.
Right.
So, you know, that was my challenge. In terms of, you know, attending there, coming from Middlesex, I think the challenge was because we were classified as a country school. We were great in playing the game of cricket. We loved it. We had the determination, but we couldn't go far because we were from the countryside. You know what I mean? Even though persons would have played for Jamaica at the youth level, but we wanted to represent the country. Straightforward, we wanted to represent the country, and that's one of the disappointments that I had in life. And the thing about the six C's, the payment for them, I still remember those. You know what I mean? Sometimes when I talk to my mother about it, she started get heated, So I just walk away and leave her. Because you don't forget those things. And my children now, I grew them on that premise. Yes, because I decided then that once I am employed and I have my children, I'm going to stay there for them and steer them along the way. And to God be the
Absolutely.
glory, my brother. They have done well,
Yes.
all of them. They have done
Congratulations,
well.
man.
They have done well. So those are my two main areas. But nothing could ever, if I should live again and born again, writing the exam paper, the first school to attend, Russies. Yes, Russies. The
Yes,
passion
sir.
that I have for that school is unbelievable, man.
Yes. Yes.
Unbelievable. And that is why I will be a part of this brothers and sisters group. And only if something drastic happens, why I might take myself away. But
Right.
along the way, we'll speak about this part of it. But those are my two main areas that I really had issues with. You know, but
Good.
having
Good.
sat and got my sixes, look here, I use them to transition myself to where I'm at now.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because that's exactly where we're going now. To where you're at now, you started the JCF. What prompted you to want to be a member of the JCF?
Tell you something. Growing up in Middlesex, I was a boys brigade with that boys brigade unit that was from the Presbyterian Church in Greenland. We
Yes.
were taught the drills and all those things by a former overseas student, John Scott,
Yes.
a bugler and a cadet at Rossies. So entering Rossies, we're part of the cadet corps. Yes, man, I was part of the cadet corps when people like retired Major Clive Davis,
I
we
mice.
call him Miles Davis. Yes,
I remember
and people
mice.
like Howard Miller, Arbor Giant from
Yes.
Middlesex. He
Yes.
went through a season 78 that year before me. So my thing was all etched on the JDF, as well as my friend Archer, Carvel Archer. But I tell you something, we did sat the exams. Archer went to Kingston. I did my exam at Barracks. That's behind the airport there, that JDF camp. They had the recruiting there. And we were doing the thing. We did medical. But those days, it was telegram. You get to come. It's not like emails now and all of those things, you know, telegram. But Archer got a job with hedonism in Negri.
Right.
Said he wasn't going to army again. My best friend. Then, so I decided that I wasn't going. So I sat for about 2 years, basically at home with my grandmother, you know, not doing anything. And I got up and said, no, 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 no. Enough is enough. So I went and sat the JSF exam and went into training 1988. And I'm still here 33 years now. You know what I mean?
So 33 years. So I mean, are they I heard that you were nominated for a long service award by the that should
Yes.
be presented to you by the Governor General pretty soon.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I did all the, but prior to that, though, I'll tell you and tell the audience, I have served the criminal investigations
Yes.
for for about 30 years of my service. Because I entered the criminal investigation branch in 1991, right? In 1991, I entered And I served the division of St. James twice. Served, I did a stint earlier over in Hanover. I did a stint in Westmoreland. And in 2004, I was transferred to St. Andrews South Division, which is the station they call Huntsby, body
Right.
area, you know. And then when they started the major investigation task force in 2005 into 2006, I was part of that initial batch of investigators that were drawn to that unit.
Yes.
In '07, I met in an accident, serious accident, wherein I had to do a surgery on my right hip, you know, and spent almost a year off the job recuperating. And when I went back to work, I asked for transfer because I think just coming off that major surgery, then I need to be closer to my home. So I
Yes.
was transferred to Trelawney, served Trelawney for 2 years. In 2010, I was again transferred to St. James to head a unit that the former commissioner of police, Owen Ellington, had put together. They call it the street crime unit. Yeah, man. We had some vehicles. We did some marvelous work in St. James. And I was later drawn back to the mainstream CIB investigative unit
Yes.
because they were saying, some person said that, being at the unit, I was just there leading the people. But I'll tell you something, Darwin, that out of that unit that I took over, I produce some very good detectives right now who are
Yes.
applying the trade in St. James.
Yes.
I taught them the level and the intricacies of investigations. And
Yes.
they are the top tier persons now doing investigations in St. James. You know,
Yes.
in 2017, I was transferred from St. James to St. Anne. Spent 2 years there and did some marvelous work over there this year because I'll tell you something, anywhere that I go, I travel with a traffic behind me, because I'm going there to work. And that is what was instilled in us from school days. Hard work,
Yes.
hard work. So I thought that I would have done my time in St. Anne and I asked for transfer and I'm presently in Westmoreland. Now, in Westmoreland, I am the senior investigating officer for the parish,
Yes.
and that deals with all the serious crimes investigations. They basically have to pass through, everybody reports to me,
Yes.
you know, and that capacity is really an inspectorate position. So, you're acting there in that position until they do the promotion. But then late last year, I was called by the crime officer that there's a recommendation for me to be honored for long service and good conduct. Tell you something, Darwin, I have never been brought before an officer for anything. In my 33 years, 33 years, man.
That's commendable,
So
man.
it is a pleasure. It's a pleasure, and you know, for serving your country to be given an award at the highest level when the
Yes.
time comes,
Yes.
and to anticipate the receiving medal from the highest person in your country
Mm.
is an honor,
It's
man.
awesome. It
Governor
is. It
General,
is.
you know.
It is. It
And
is.
when that time comes, and I'll have to send it to Bruce's because Papa, Papa love to send everything to Bruce's.
Yes.
So I will ensure that Bruce is the first to see the citation,
Yes.
you know, and the medals because you get the medals and I'm gonna wear them proudly.
Of
Even
course.
though I don't wear uniform, I wear plain clothes, jacket, suit, and all those things. I'm gonna
Yes.
wear them on the jacket so that
Yes.
the people see. Because we Russians are proud people.
You're talking, I
We're very
know.
proud.
The
You
funny
know.
thing is, over all these years, I can't recall ever seeing you in a uniform. And I want to ask you something too. Um, over the 33 years that you've been a part of the service, in what capacities have you served up until this date? What position have you hold? And there's another double-barreled question I want to ask at the end of that. What I don't know if you're privy to talk about what the strategies or plans are that you might have in mind for Western Jamaica since there are a little surge in crime. I don't know if you're privy to say, you can just speak on it however you feel comfortable.
Well, as I said to you before, that for 30 years, out of that 33 years, I've served the criminal investigation branch. So everything for me, my entire service, or my life after school and enjoying policing is straight hardcore criminal investigations. I would have worn the regime for 2 years and plus, and I would have worked in the courtroom. At one stage, I was the bodyguard for a particular judge that now retires, and but I would do all the other aspects of policing during those 2.5 to 3 years that I wore a uniform. But my main duties now that I do is straight investigations. Now, you talk about strategies, there's some things I don't think I would want to go down that level but, for me, what I want to do where I'm at in terms of is to ensure that the persons under my command are well equipped to deal with the level of crimes committed in their space. And when I meant equipped, I meant they must be under my tutelage, so versed to investigations that when you do an investigation into a particular matter, it must stand up to the test of time in the courts.
Yes.
Because policing is all about the final part, which is the courts.
Yes.
And I've always tell people that look here, we do investigation and then the courts do adjudication.
Right.
There is a motto, worldwide motto as it relates to police, especially investigators. And it is four things. One, you gather. Two, you record. Three, you compile. And four, you submit for adjudication. Gathering, you speak to anyone because there are aspects in law that tells you can speak to anyone when you're investigating a matter. But then if you're a suspect, then there's a different route that you need to go.
Yes.
As also, when you gather, then you record because what you record is what becomes the evidence.
Yes.
And then when you gather all those evidence, you put them together and submit them to the court. The court
Yes.
has the final say. You
But
understand me?
Kanai,
That is the
a lot of people will say, they don't trust the police. I have to ask you this curveball question. Person don't want to talk to the police. Unless that matter directly affects them. then they will the matter is at their door, then they will talk to the police, but otherwise they don't see nothing. Nobody trusts the police. I mean, how do you, that's a big challenge for you.
Well, look, right across the globe, you hear the world and the world cries for no trust in the police. But let me tell you something, Darwin. The JCF, as one of the most robust, and I said robust, investigative body against their own.
Right.
Now, we have several different avenues where you can be brought to books if you do certain things as a member. You have the internal part of the thing, in terms of the superintendent or whoever is in charge of the parish can try you for any misconduct.
Right.
You have the court of inquiry, which is an internal thing also. You have the ethics board, and that speaks to where you went. Once those people hear those things, you're called in and you must answer to that. Unlike some other organizations across Jamaica, I'm not going to tell you that you might not have one and two that slips through the crack.
Yes.
But once you're heard of, they draw you the books.
Yes.
You also have the anti-corruption branch within the force
Yes.
that deals with any level of corruption. You have the Bureau of Special Investigations within the force that deals with the investigation. And look here, if you as a civilian have an issue with we and say, look here, we abusive or we abuse our authority, then you have Indicom around there somewhere people report to.
Yes.
Now, if you count them together, that is six investigating the one organization. As I
Right.
said, you will always have one and two things that slip through the crack. Just about every organization, you have that,
Yes.
right? However, I have not, and even in the division that I have worked, you know, I have not seen that type of behavioral pattern when I am there. But yes, you hear that people say, okay, I don't trust them. One thing I have always told persons that look,
Yes.
you cannot tell me that you don't have a police officer, both male or female, that you're close to, that you can confide in. Because listen, you don't have to put an information on the pedestal
Right.
so that the world hear, right? We are technologically savvy now in Jamaica and across the world. And you have a number for whether you're a police officer friend. Once you text him, he has a duty to deal with that report or deal with that information or pass it on to his seniors. So I am not going to tell you that you know there aren't persons who speak about that behavioral pattern. But as I said to you, we have that robust aspect of the force that deals with those behaviors. And
Right.
once it is
Right.
identified, it is strongly dealt with, you
You
know.
know,
But
as
I
you
tell
talk
you
about that,
something,
but where do you draw the line though? Because you know, you have a person that you trust in the force, and yet there's a particular situation arise, and then that person will know if they commit some offense, but then they know that the police is coming to talk to them or coming for them before the police even get there. They're not there anymore. So I mean, sometimes there's a little muddy area right there.
yes. All right, let me tell you something. There are times, because it happens wherein persons have issues.
Right.
And even on the top of them bike, they go on a station. I'll tell you something. People are so violent nowadays that when you leave, in their mind, they say, yeah, you got a station, go report me. Sometimes it's a lie.
Right.
Them say this, it's a lie. Because let me tell you something. Sometimes when you hear, like this, they said that this man is talking to this one or this person out there that may be unscrupulous in their view. And when you do your investigation, it's totally a lie. But you must
Right.
draw a line, and we have drawn the line. And that is why I say to you that immediately as the force heard of any misconduct in that nature, if it is,
Yes. Yes.
then the line is drawn. And the gauntlet is drawn down on you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And let me tell you something that way. If it is a criminal offense that you're going to be charged for, you're going to be charged,
Of course, it should.
right?
Yes.
Our organization, and I am going to say this without reservation, is the only one in this country that has the police slip in slide. And if
Yes.
it
Yes.
is for he or she to be brought before the court, you're going to be brought there.
Yes.
And if you're exposed and you get convicted, it's like you're done with it.
Yes. Yes.
And I can tell you that, you know, I have looked at sentences that have been passed as members before and realized that judges don't take kindly with members of the organization because you're the one supposed to be setting the
Upholding the law.
example and
Yes.
protecting the nation. You're the one
Yes.
administering the laws of Jamaica around there. So you'll get some serious sentence, either in
Yes.
fines
Yes.
or custodial wise.
Yes.
So we have drawn the line. And I'm going to tell you that it is not much now that you hear people, what you might heard people saying is little extrajudicial killing. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But look here, I have been there many a times, and I've been shot at many a times. I'm still here. And I am not because I'm on this interview. I want to tell you that it happens. Many of our members have been killed along the line of duty. You understand me? It is sad. A matter of fact, I lost a batchmate right here in St. James. He was my very good friend a couple of years back. And he was killed just because he did some very good work a few weeks before. Was ambushed and shot and killed. You know what I mean? So we draw the line and we're going to continue to draw the line. But I tell people over and over, feel free to speak because we have a duty to deal with it. There's no if
Yes.
and but about that. We
Yes.
have a duty to
Absolutely.
deal with it.
Well said. Well said. I really appreciate that. But Mr. Connell, I have to ask you this one question, and Mr. Connell is going to hit me over the head for this. He promised me to not to say this, but I'm not the brightest star in the bunch. But several times we hear reports that persons, I mean, there's some shipment somewhere, and persons are not caught. Nobody is caught, but the materials are seized. So in my view, I'm saying, I mean, why there's nobody caught? Why don't they follow where the material is going, grab what they have to do? I mean, if you want to, say it in your own way, how do you deal with situations like that?
Well, there are times, when, and I'll be frank with you, I understand where you're going, shipment of firearms and ammunition, because
Yes,
that is prevalent and come through. But sometimes the persons don't even come for that stuff. And it cannot be staying in the warehouse at the wall for a long time. So, but then investigations are being done. And I think there was one recent one where investigation was done and persons were arrested and charged. But you see, as I said before, you have to do the investigations. You know, one of the things though, Darwin, that I would love, because we have systems in place at our wharves and even at the airport. I ask myself the question: they're coming from where you guys are, the big one. Am I to understand that there's no system there to hold on to them there? Or you send them for us to catch them and then you said that you were watching it. No, we don't produce guns here in Jamaica.
So, that is it's like a catch. It's like a catch 22 where I'm just testing your security system to see how good your surveillance is. That's like that's a no-brainer right there. But again, when you look at the better part of it now, what would you like to see? What's the difference that you would like to see to prevent these things from happening?
Well,
Do they need to update the surveillance systems or things
look
like that?
here. If
What
you get
change would you
more
like to see?
cooperation, if you get more cooperation from the big man, Uncle Sam,
Yes,
life will be better. That's all.
yes.
Better cooperation.
Well said. Well said.
Because
I
if
don't
you
want to
get
get too
that
far
level of
into it because
cooperation, yeah, you
the
know,
thing is, I don't want to put you in a spot where you have to compromise information, privy information. So, I just want to
no, no,
you go ahead. You wanted to say something.
no, no. I'm just saying that that's where I'm going with it. That just said, do what you're supposed to do over there. We do what
Yes,
we have to do here,
very well
right?
said.
One
Very
hand,
well said.
two hands clap.
Yes, yes. So
But we're
how
doing.
does the yes, but how does the COVID now? Because COVID is upon us. How is it more difficult for the police to do their job now with the COVID out there?
It's a balancing job, you know. You have to balance it because you know I tell people that there are two things that I think that the black people came from Africa with. They came from Africa with their strength and their strength to work hard, and they brought their culture with them.
Yes,
Them love
yes,
music, right?
yes.
Now we would have been maybe one of the first set of countries that really put things in place to deal with this pandemic. We would have, even up to this point, then the the order still stands that only 15 persons can congregate at one given time,
Right.
and you must be 6 feet apart, right? And that you must wear your mask right around the place, and everywhere that you go into, you must sanitize, right? And public buildings, government buildings, they have to. Because when we do business with some persons out there and different institutions, we see that they put it there. But the trouble we have is that, especially at night when you work, you have to be sending people home because they don't adhere to the
Right.
rules. You know what I mean? But when you look at the numbers, though, it is like about 20% of that number, or 20% of the population that disobeys,
Right.
you know? But doing policing, we try to follow all the basic standards that have been set to deal with the job because when everybody else outside of the health sector
Yes.
can stay home and work, we have to be out there because the security Hello?
I'm hearing you, man.
Okay, because the security of this nation, even though there's a pandemic, it still has to be at the top of the ladder.
Of course,
So,
absolutely.
we try, even in my department, we have work to do, but we ensure that the persons follow the guidelines that we put in place and what the government puts in place. And we ensure that those that are coming to us follow that. If you don't,
Yes,
then we can realize that. See, you
yes,
have to
yes,
follow those. So we
yes,
make sure that you come, you wear your mask, and we have the sanitizing area. So if you're coming into the office, it is right there for you. Your hand sanitized. I think though that persons in Jamaica, Darwin, have been cooperating. They have been cooperating. They're following it because fool not yourself that they're not watching the world and see where the world is going outside of Jamaica.
right.
I mean, have little rise here, but not as how some other places. Even some countries that are smaller than us, their thing is way up there. But as members of the JCF, we always been proactive and we can react also to any issue that comes up in relation to the pandemic. But I urge people to adhere to the rules, adhere
Yes.
to the guidelines that the government says,
Put in
adhere
place.
to
Yes,
adhere to any guidelines that if you're
yes,
traveling and you go across to America, Canada, anyone, adhere to
yes,
those when you're there.
yes,
Because there will be a time, and very soon, that when
yes,
you choose to go to America from Jamaica or you choose to come to Jamaica, you'll have to be tested. And on your way
yes,
out, so
yes,
if you don't adhere, then traveling is limited. But
yes.
for us, we practice. And the staff that works with me, they have to practice.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better. Let me check with the chat room a little bit more to see what they're talking about. They're having a different conversation there. So as we have about like 5 more minutes and then we wrap up. Um, I was thinking earlier, now that you talk about the COVID and you have it under control pretty much, it's not a mandate in Jamaica. I've seen where Jamaica, we are leaders. You talk about that. And I think Jamaica is way ahead in leading in how we deal with this COVID pandemic more than some other bigger countries. It's evident, it's there for persons who have traveled, and you talk about that earlier. And um, it affects the children mostly nowadays. You have children. You're a father figure. Did what you're doing, what you're supposed to do as a father. How is your children coping with it? How are you as a parent coping with it?
Well, they have coped well, being some work from home, you know what I mean? While it depends on the job description that this one does, you have to go in there. Because one of them
Yes.
were GPs, so he has to go in. But then he's always masked up. I'm wondering at one
Right.
stage I saw him, and I didn't even know that it was my son. It was when he's, because he's well masked. So, and I have always emphasized with them, it cannot be overemphasized that you follow those. Like my eldest daughter who did the sciences at university, she knows very well. She knows very well about those issues because she almost every day she called me about it. Said, "Daddy, you're wearing your mask, and it is being reiterated by my sister in Connecticut and my niece. Every time we speak on a daily basis, they say, hey boy, you're wearing your mask? Yes, hand sanitizing. Yes, I'm doing that. Yes, I'm doing that. So,
Yes.
I am pretty confident that, the children and those that are around me, even my other half, they do that where she works at,
Yes.
it is a must that you do that. Yes, I'm very much confident that they will survive it. And, I have not heard any rancor from them that when the vaccine is here, they're not going to take it. Because, as a matter of fact, when we look at the list of persons to get the vaccine when it arrives in Jamaica, we're on the list number two.
Wow.
The health workers are on the list as number one. We're on it as number two. So, and I am going to take my shot. I don't care what anybody else wants to say. I'm going to take it because as the olden days and persons say, and the whole colloquial term speaks of prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
You see, and it makes no sense. You don't try to prevent. And in our job description, one of the first things is it speaks to prevention,
Yes.
prevention and detection of crime. So you try to prevent
Yes.
it from happening in the initial
Yes.
stage.
Yes.
And then if it happens, then you go and detect it. So I will
Yes.
prevent from entering my body. You
Yes.
understand me? So I'm going to take my. Well, as I say, I'm pretty confident that the children they are upbeat and they are at their best to take their vaccine and to ensure that they are safe from
Yes.
this virus. Because
Yes.
the strain is out there. England is under siege,
Yes.
and other countries are under siege of this pandemic. So we have done well, and we just want to keep it that way.
Yes. Well said. Well said. Troy is asking a question, and I don't want him
Mhm.
to be mad if I don't ask you this question. It's very important. That what plans do you and your team have in place to combat crime in Western Jamaica?
Well, I remember you asked that question earlier, and I did say that you know there are aspects of it that I don't think I would want to divulge that because they're classified. But
Yes. Yes.
in terms of where I'm sitting at with the team that I lead, and I can say to Troy that investigations, if you don't investigate the crimes, you won't get results,
Yes.
right? And it makes no sense that matters or offenses are committed and you don't do proper investigations. But there are other aspects of it that the High Command would have put in place, of which, I can't divulge those. You
Right.
know, I cannot do that. But for
True.
me and my team that I lead, straightforward investigations to ensuring that the criminal elements are taken off the street, convicted, and sent where they ought to be. Prison, of course. But
Yes.
as I said, there are some things that are classified. And I
Yes.
know you understand that,
Yes.
because it borders on internal aspects of the whole thing that is confidential,
Yes.
very confidential.
Totally understood. Totally understood. And you talk about prevention a lot there. The breakdown of discipline I would say, in my view, the breakdown of discipline is what contributed, or is what is contributing right now to that rise or that level of crime, because it starts in the person's mind. Because when we were growing up, we didn't have that level of crime. So in your
Yeah,
view, I totally get that.
well, you had crimes in our time, but I think you see, you have to identify from whom, because if you don't observe from whom, how your children operate. And I give you an instance, you see, my last son was attending Mushet High School in Trelawney, and he got 5 pants. They were sewn by the tailor, because over the years, that's what we do. And I was at the station in Adelphi. And when he got off the bus, the pants was taken in. Now, this is a macho looking fellow, the pants was taken in. So
Yes.
I saw it and I said, come here. And, the face changed, the facial
Expression
complexion,
change.
the expression changed on the face. And I said to him, who took in the pants? And he said, he took it to a dressmaker in the area where he lives at. I said, okay, you're going to go home and you're going to take that same pants to that dressmaker along with the other four. Because in my view, you have done so. Tell her that I am the one who put them together. She must put it back where she saw it.
Yes.
Man, when I go up there, he was at the dressmaker. If you cannot identify the children from home, when they become loose, because when they go there and mix with their peers, and their peers are saying, look here, this is it, this is that. They join. When you hear that way, the heart's gone through the gate already
Yes. Absolutely.
in the
Yeah.
home, right? And because of job description, we tend to leave some mornings or sometime before the children go to school. So we
Yes.
don't what transpire after we leave. Or if they do go to school. For me, all of them, I do rain check on them at school when they were going to school. And that is why, as I said before, they were kept in line. What needs to come back is that children or parents need to understand that you don't leave your children on teachers. But what you do, you rain check your child and help them, not
Yes.
just to allow them to go to school. Because I would have seen this year's CXC results, wherein last year's CXC results, wherein the children did so well and they were school at home. They were school at home. So we need to basically start go back to the good old days where parents ensure that their children are well monitored.
Yes. Yes. So as a this is going to be I said I'm going to make my last question. As a father, how important is it for you for fathers to be in the home with the children? Because a lot of homes may not have the fathers present. That might be a little difficult.
Well, listen, even when I was working in Kingston, I use the telephone that way on a regular basis because you can be out of sight, but you're not out of mind.
Right.
And that was what I did when I was working in Kingston, even in Trelawney. No man, I use the phone and I connect with them.
Yes.
But
Yes.
being at home with them, I am there for them. I have to help you here with your schoolwork, I sit with you, right? My duty, and as I told you before, that having gotten that assistance from Mr. Dunkley, I told myself that I will be there for them. Now,
Yes.
delinquent fathers, you still have delinquent mothers, right? You still have that. But it cannot be overemphasized that, the parents, it doesn't matter if you don't have a dollar to give the child, just be there. Just be there. Your
So
mere
so how,
presence.
as a part of community policing, can't it be where the police can assist and identify some of these homes where they are missing? Because some of these young men, they are looking for a role model. And when I was growing up, these were some of the police was some of the role models that we look up to: firemen, teachers. Can police identify some of these missing persons, missing parents, and correct these behaviors before these guys
Yeah, man.
become criminal elements?
They, we do work with the CDA, Child Development Agency, right? We do work with them, and the community safety unit within the JSA
Right.
work tirelessly around parents and children. So
Yes.
we have programs because you know different divisions put things in place to
Yes.
help a child here. And once the child is being brought before the court, then the court summon the parents, and then the social workers dip into the family history and present
Right.
a report to the courts.
Yes.
So we as the police, we do serious work around that part, especially with the community safety. And at times you'll get the information that this father is missing. It came through the hard work that some of our members have done, you know,
Right.
and even reuniting parents with their children, you
Right.
know, our team does that. So, we have a robust thing in place and it has been far reaching. I mean, we may need extra funding to do some of those work, but
Yes.
for what we do spend quality time there, and it has borne fruit over the years. It has borne fruit over the years, So we have we have that in place, that unit that deals with that, you know, and we work alongside the Child Development Agency that speaks to both parents and children, ensuring that they're all in line.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for taking the time out, Kanai, to be with the Rossi's Brosis Empowerment Hour. And this is the moment now where I will just give you the moment to say, special requests or special shout out to persons who have helped you along the way, who you have, you know, commendations for, persons who you respect a lot. Now is the moment when you have to, you get the time to say that before we wrap up.
Yeah, man. I want to say first and foremost, you said Darwin, and I thought that you would have asked this question, but I am happy to be a part of the Brothers and Sisters Foundation.
Yes.
I want to say thanks to our teachers, those teachers who taught me. But I would always say Mr. Carell, Mr. Dunkley, you know, Coach Henry, Miss Jones, a lot of those teachers, you know, Bulla Try, my good friend, you know, Lyndon Stewart, who kind of guide me in teaching me how to play the game of football, you know. Ron Summers, all the members, Papa, all those guys. But, I have observed though, Darwin, that, I've seen where some level of indiscipline is basically creeping into this foundation. And Sunday, I would have seen where the president was at pains to say to persons that look here, if you don't desist, then we'll have to axe you from this thing. Now, boys and girls here on this foundation, we're big men and women, and the the foundation was formed entirely for overseas.
Yes.
All of us are past students. We may not be in the same era, but we're still past students. And once we go anywhere and we resonate as a Russian,
Yes.
right? I want to say to the members that, you know, please, because there are many of us who are sitting on the sidelines, not necessarily on the outer sideline, but we're sitting, we're watching, and we're listening, and we're reading. And, you know, we can take it and take no more at times. Yeah, because you don't feed us with the same foolishness. And if persons have been asking us to desist and we fail to desist, then when we're axed from the group, then we can't blame anybody. We're big people. And in Jamaica, the law as it relates to the cyber crime with things that, me no like, you don't like, others don't like. It is called cyberbullying if you're forcing it down our throat morning, noon, and night. It is classified as cyberbullying, right? So we're a group and we must be united. But if we discuss a point and we are not in agreement, right? But the old time saying says you can disagree to agree, right? Because you can disagree, because it is really the point that I am bringing out and the point that you're bringing out. Maybe both of us are right,
Yes.
but we cannot go down the line where
Yes.
we're being faithful to each other. I love everybody on this Brosis family thing. And I don't know when start to talk that with it's pure
Yes.
laughter. And I like bigger with this wellness thing and
Yes.
with
Yes.
something there, the one centipede. Tell centipede that I have a DSP friend. I hope he's listening. A DSP friend in Kingston who don't like him.
Yes.
You
Because
see,
of the
the
food.
put it that way. He his brother works with my DSP friend.
Yes.
Right. Yes, his brother is a member of the force. And my friend, remember when we played St. Mary and Centipede destroyed them better. St. Mary High,
Yes.
passed St. Mary High and Centipede. He said that sent Ryan Steele. The man said that man will destroy St. Mary. I never liked the man, but he what happened now? Found out that his student was St. Ryan's brother. It's pure joy. But
Yes.
every time I come up on St. Ryan, they will come up and say, yes, that brother, yes, man. You know? But tell St. Ryan, I don't want him to know that I can't bother too much with the food down that he's putting on the table and I'm not getting any.
Yes.
So I'm going later this when the COVID thing is down and I'm coming to see him because I want some food. No work with my money so
Yes.
that I can work because I don't want Papa. So that I in the kitchen because I always go to Papa it was my pleasure being at Rossi's. It was my pleasure representing the institution in cricket, and it's always my pleasure contributing to my alma mater. And it is a joy being on this brothers and sisters foundation, and I will so do until, as I said before, something drastic happens. May God bless you guys all.
Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm your host, Darwin, saying thank you. And thank you, Kanai, for being a part of the Rossi's Empowerment Hour for this week. I am your host, Darwin, saying thank you again. Until next week, we see you again. Thank you, Kanai.
Yeah,
Have
man.
a wonderful evening.
Yeah, man.
Viewers and subscribers, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yes, sir. Peace and love.
Blessings, man.